Hello, I'm Dan Schauff, and I'm one of the dairy cattle nutritionists at Agri-King. In a previous video, Dr. Gene Gengelbach described some factors that can impact starch digestibility of corn grain and corn silage. In today's video, I want to talk about how we assess starch digestibility on farm. One of the ways in which we can do this is by testing fecal samples for starch content. A number of years ago, we developed an equation that predicts starch digestibility from fecal starch, and it compares well to equations published in the literature. So consequently, testing fecal starch and therefore predicting starch digestibility is one of those tools that we use to assess forage and grain digestion on farm. Today, I want to cover a couple of things. The first thing I want to cover is talk about what are some typical expected ranges for fecal starch and therefore starch digestion in dairy cows. And then secondly, discuss some starch digestion benchmarks. What's considered poor starch digestibility that may need improvement? What's considered acceptable starch digestibility, but maybe still could be improved somewhat? And then what is the ideal goal for starch digestibility in dairy herds? So you can see here, this is a distribution of fecal starch values on fecal samples, over 700 fecal samples that we analyzed over the last several years. And as you can see, there's a wide range of fecal starch contents, ranging from hardly any at all, like 0.2%, all the way up to over 18% starch. However, the vast majority of the fecal starch contents is going to range somewhere between 0.2 to 0.64% starch content, with an average starch content of around 3.2 of the dairy cow fecal samples that we have monitored over the years. What does that mean in regards to starch digestibility? Well, when you do the calculations to predict starch digestion, you'll find that there's probably a good third or better samples definitely need improvement in starch digestion, as it ranges from 80 to 95, 96%. Then there's another 50% of samples that would be considered acceptable starch digestibility, but still could have some room for improvement. And then finally, the ideal level of starch digestibility would be exceeding 98%. There's very few samples above 98% digestibility, but some of our best high feed efficiency herds are at that level. So what are the benchmarks? What are we shooting for? So if you're looking at fecal starch at more than 7 to 3.1%, that translates to about 92 to 96%. This definitely would be an area where we would expect some opportunity to improve starch digestibility. If we have fecal starch content between 3.1 and 1.2, then we've got some pretty acceptable digestibilities between 96 and 98, but there still could be some room for improvement. Ideally, we'd like to see starch content at 1.1% or essentially almost zero, or 98 to 98% starch digestibility. So the bottom line is, based on the fecal starch results in the survey, there's a definite potential for improvements in starch digestibility and feed efficiency in probably over 80% of the samples. That translates to perhaps 8 of 10 farms have room for improvement in starch digestion and feed efficiency. You may want to contact your area manager today if you would like to assess starch digestion in your herd. And you might consider the use of Agri-King's enzyme and direct-fed microbial products such as zymofactors and our new and improved Zymend as tools to improve starch digestion and overall nutrient digestion and absorption. Thank you.